All right, folks. So here, you should be here for LED's webinar series with Amanda Guthrie on emotional intelligence part 4. And if you've been following along, it's a great series. And if you haven't been, well, we do have the edited recordings that we're putting up on our YouTube. Thank you for being here, by the way.
So welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for getting on. My name is Amanda Guthrie, and I am outreach for the Auburn University, the Harbert College of Business. And so what we do is we go into organizations, industries in the state of Alabama and surrounding states usually, and do a variety of things, including process improvement, the lean, continuous improvement, and then the people side, the organizational development. So that's what we're here doing today. Hopefully that's what you're all here for. Emotional intelligence. Super happy to have you. All right. So just really quick overview. What is emotional intelligence in general? The ability to accurately assess your own and others' feelings and emotions and use that assessment to guide intentional thinking and actions. So this is what we've been talking about for the 3 sessions, and now this 4th one. If you see, it's been broken down into self-awareness and then self-management. And with that, obviously, I have to start with myself before I can grow relationships. And then last time we talked about social awareness. And today we'll be talking about relationship management. So here's the first question for you. What do you think is a foundation of all relationships? Communication, respect, understanding. Absolutely, all really important areas when it comes to relationship. What we'll be discussing as the foundation is trust. And so I believe that trust is the glue and the most essential and effective communication and the foundation for all relationships. And it has to go both ways, obviously. It can't just be one-sided or that's not a good relationship. So last time we talked a little bit about how do I understand, how do I become more aware of how other people are, and then relating that back to myself. We're going to be talking about 4 elements to building trust. And what we'll find is that typically people will do 2 of these areas really well. One area pretty good, and then one area maybe they struggle a little bit more with. So we'll go into each one. And this will help you, again, for yourself and for looking at the other person. So the first one is the direct or consistency. And when we talked about this would be the D for DISC, if you're familiar with DISC or if you were here from last time. And just in general, thinking about that may be more of a lion personality. So with building trust, I say what I mean and I mean what I say and I walk the walk. So if I'm going to tell you I'm going to do something, I follow through with that. I'm consistent. And so then for the next, the openness, this will be related more with the eyes or the parrots. And we say, transparency. I'm open to ideas and opinions, and I'm also willing to disclose my own ideas and opinions. And so with that, these are the things that you find typically within the area. The next one that we have is the acceptance. That's respecting others. Who you are is okay, and I do not judge others. And then we have reliability or the commitment. You can count on me to do a task and follow up, and I will do my best at everything. And so what we'll do then is, like I said, these are elements to building trust. And for y'all, if you would do me a favor, with trust, it's not static. It's either building and diminishing. And so what I want you to do, I'm going to show you quick, and then I'll go back to the other side. What 2 elements come easily for you, and maybe which one takes more energy for you personally? I'd like to hear some feedback, and we'll talk about it. And there's no, right or wrong answer. It just depends on how you are and how you interact with your folks. And so as you're hopefully beginning to type in there, I'll give you my 2 are the direct and transparent. That typically comes pretty well or easily for me. I don't have any problem with meaning what I say or beating around the bush. I'm fairly direct. And then also I'm willing to ideas and love hearing ideas and all that. And I have no problem sharing my ideas either. So I love to see, this mixture of folks. We have, let's see. So the easiest for some folks, the directness and respect, open, acceptance, whatnot. Let's see, what are the cool. Yeah, the one that for me is hard, and I think that it's hard to admit to is the respect for others. I wouldn't say that I'm disrespectful, but I have, who I am and whatnot. And then I guess I'm more likely to make an assumption. And I know that about myself. And so I have to be really careful with that. So let's see. Yeah, sometimes my biases are hard to leave aside. Sure. Based off of our prior experience. Okay, so what we'll do then is like let's take a look. Ideas for improvement in each of these areas. So whichever one is the area for you that you find causes more energy or takes more energy out of you, these are some ideas in each of the areas for them. So with consistency, what happens a lot of times is that some people they're afraid to be that direct, or blunt, maybe is another word that you think you'll be perceived as. And so what people tend to do, I tell long stories, or I beat around the bush, right? I'm not really getting to the point. And so an idea for improvement would be to be factual, come up with the facts and to the point. So be simple and short with it and direct with folks. Using I statements. So if you're trying to have a conversation with somebody about a conflict, instead of saying you did this, we would turn that into I felt frustrated or disappointed when you showed up late to the meeting that we scheduled because it was disrespectful of my time, or that you didn't value my time for that. So it takes some of the blame. There's still blame there, but it takes it away more of it's how I felt. And that's a better reception. And then following through with matching actions with words. Don't just say it. Like if you're going to say it, then actually do it. For the openness part, if you struggle again with getting the ideas from the other person, asking for their input first. Before you start giving your opinions and ideas, ask for them first, just to get that started, get them talking. Maybe practice sharing ideas with one person or a smaller group and build up. I know with the openness for folks, it may be something from previous in their past or how they grew up or a previous job where their ideas were shared and either nothing happened, it didn't get taken into consideration, or were ridiculed or made fun of or something like that. And so they were more guarded. And so if starting with that one person that maybe you already have that foundation of trust with, to say, hey, I want to practice being a little bit more open with you, and then build up from there to gain that skill. And also for that area, admitting your mistakes. That is part of being vulnerable. We'll talk a little bit more of that, but it's hard for some people to admit their mistakes because of that vulnerability. So again, start small with it, admitting that and coming out and say, hey, I did this, my bad. For the reliability in this area, a lot of times what's happening is that you want to take on everything. And I've got a lot, I want to do all this stuff. I got all these commitments. And so try to practice limiting that. And so with doing that, we'll be able to potentially fit more in and be able to be reliable with my commitments. And then with those commitments, after I limited them, we can prioritize and schedule them in. You're more likely to achieve those commitments if you actually put them in some type of schedule and you see it visually and give you a reminder, something like that, to do it. This area, if you struggle with it, it may be that you're late a lot of the time. That's me. I'm okay with this area. But I do tend to be late sometimes. And so add that extra time up front. So maybe you will end up early, but at least you're not late. And then finally, the last section is the acceptance. Some tip would be to find a commonality with that person. I know that when I'm trying to build a relationship with somebody that I don't know very well, I'm not sure what the commonalities may not be obvious. Just take the time to ask those questions, have a conversation up front, and then you'll start to find commonalities, and then automatically you start to grow that trust with that person. And find the value of the differences. And so looking at this may be who I am and how I am, and they're different. So how can that, how the way that they are, how is that beneficial as well? And so, for example, when we're looking at these, a lot of times the consistency and the acceptance are kind of the opposite. And so for the acceptance side of it, say if the person is really direct and maybe that's a little bit cumbersome or overbearing for you, say, okay, well, at least they can get to the point and maybe get to the problem and solve the problem faster. So looking for that value of those differences. And then being curious, asking questions, just learning about that person in general. And we'll start to see, that helps us to see the humanity in general of people, and then understanding, like we all make mistakes and they're different, or, oh, I didn't know that about them. And just that creates the better connection. Yeah. So for those that aren't aware, Ted Lasso is a TV show where this gentleman that you see right here on the screen, Ted, formerly an American football coach, and was hired by a woman to be an English soccer coach. Is that correct, Manny?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
So what happened was that this woman and this man, they got a divorce, and they owned this soccer team. And the soccer team ended up being hers after they got the divorce. And the soccer team was the ex-husband's, like, that was his baby, right? He loved the soccer team. And so she basically wanted to sabotage the soccer team. She hired Ted with the thought that he would fail. And so in this scene, Ted is playing darts with the ex-husband, and he could be quite a jerk. And so this will learn a little bit how to be curious instead of judgmental. All right.
Hey, what do I need to weigh? 2 tweeties, no buck. Rupert, guys have underestimated me my entire life. And for years, I never understood why. I used to really laugh. But then one day, I was driving my little boy at school, and I saw this quote by Walt Whitman, and it was painted on the wall there. It said, "Be curious, not judgmental." I like that. So I get back in my car, I'm driving to work, and all of a sudden, it hits me. All them fellas that used to belittle me, not a single one of them were curious. They thought they had everything all figured out, and so they judged everything, and they judged every woman. And I realized that they're underestimating me. Who I was had nothing to do with it. Because if they were curious, they would ask questions. Questions like, have you played a lot of darts, Ted? To which I would have answered, yes, sir. Every Sunday afternoon at a sports bar with my father from age 10 to I was 16 when he passed away. Barbecue sauce.
That's what I just love, that clip that kind of gives a description of being curious and understanding that when we're judged by other people, that has nothing to do with us. That has to do with them and their perspective. But a good thing to practice with being curious is trying to look at the other side, and like he was saying, asking questions and just getting to know the other person. So another element to building that trust with folks, or building relationships with people, is humility and understanding what humility actually is. And so I like the little graphic here, the little cartoon that says humility isn't thinking less of yourself, it's thinking of yourself less. And so it's having a good idea of where I'm at, and like, I do well in this area, but maybe not so well in this area, and just having that understanding. The little picture on the right with Albert Einstein, the more knowledge that we get, the less of ego that we get, which I don't, I could see both ways of it. Sometimes I've seen some folks that maybe the term is educated, that's the difference, and they're a little bit see highly of themselves. But in general, the more we learn and understand about the earth and people, I think that our ego goes down. So what I do to be more humble, like we had talked about before, sharing your mistakes as teachable moments, just that shows like the human side, the error side of humanity that we all are. Engage in dialogue and not debates. Some people typically jump into those debates because they want to win. But with that, there are a winner and a loser. And so if you're trying to build relationships, you may try to avoid those in general. Getting different points of view. And so instead of just seeing it from your way, trying to come around to their side and seeing it and understand that we all have biases built into ourselves based on prior experience and things that we grew up with, and then other work situations that we've been in for previous work. And so just have that conversation, make it a conversation instead of debate where you have to win and somebody has to lose. Embracing uncertainty. We live in such an uncertain time right now, and we all are feeling it, but I don't think a lot of times it comes out in conversation. And so just having this understanding, we know, business is complicated, but admit that, hey, this is complicated. There's a lot of pieces that fit into our business. And then admitting that you don't have all the answers. Some people want to have an answer for everything. You say, hey, you know what? I'm not sure. Let me get back to you on that. And I'll research it, or I'll go and talk to somebody else. And that really helps for the other person. Like, wow, that's cool that they were able to admit that, but they're also follow up and get my answer. And then within the workplace too, that creates that culture of other people to be able to say, like, you know what, let me get back to you on that, instead of just trying to make something up, or I think I know this. And then empowering others to lead, so you don't have to do everything, and being able to effectively delegate. So it forces a different perspective for both the team member and the leader. You're getting into their head, learning how they think and what they see about different problems, accomplishing different tasks. And then it also facilitates team member development, helps them to grow. And while you're doing that, coaching and everything, it builds that relationship between, the two of you. I really like this picture here on the right. My coworker actually took this picture. His name was Rick. And this is in New Zealand. And it's, you probably can't even see it. Like at the very bottom of the screen, there is a walkway and there are people. And it's like teeny tiny little people. And so when you realize that's the perspective of the volcano, it's like, wow, at once I knew I was not magnificent. I'm not nothing, but there's so much else in the world that's bigger than I am. And just to help get that perspective, of that humility. So it's one of my favorite videos.
Many cars were moving, but mooing could be heard on the Capitol Beltway around Washington, D.C. early this morning. A tractor-trailer transporting Gus, there's Black or Gus, was stopped on the side of the Beltway while the driver changed a flat tire. I wonder if those cows named Black and Gus were actually Black Angus cows. But features the possibility that I've been raised in this interpret movement. I was a devil so short. That's what he left. That angry.
So what's really cool about that video is the gentleman was able to laugh at his own mistake. But think about the trust that they must have as live, anchormen, where the other guy could call him out on it. On live television, they can have a good laugh together. So you can tell that relationship, they've already had established trust in that. So another tactic for building relationships is called the emotional bank account, or EBA. And so what this is how do we see our real bank accounts? What do you want them to look like? In the black, not in the red, positive. Yeah, I want my bank account to be full, right? And the same thing with an emotional bank account. We have the emotional bank accounts with each relationship, or each relationship that we're trying to create. And so what do we have to do to grow our accounts with our money? We have to make deposits, right? Make more deposits than withdrawals, right? Keep adding to it. And the same thing with an emotional bank account. And so when we're adding deposits into the bank account with the relationships that we have to know the other person. And so we call it knowing their currency. So a withdrawal for one person could be a deposit for another. And so again, we take the time to get to know our folks a little bit better. And this can apply to at home and in your work life to build those relationships. Being sincere and consistent about it, obviously, making small deposits over time, and trying not to make too many withdrawals. And so, for example, with knowing the person's currency at work, there are some people that like to be given the pat on the back, like in front of people, or pull them up on stage and give me a medal and a trophy. And I'm exaggerating, but they like that. Hey, give me the attention. And then there are other people that are like, that would be awful. I do not want that. And so you have to know your people to know, okay, am I doing this? Is it going to be withdrawal, or is it going to be a deposit? Just curious, which one do you prefer, private appreciation or bring me up on stage, in public? So we got some in the middle, both mainly private. I love Jay on stage, man. That's me. I wouldn't mind it, both. So a lot of people, they don't mind either. So just knowing that before we go and do this public display, maybe even asking the person, this is what we're going to be doing, would this be okay? So, on. So the closer the relationship that you have or that you want to have, the more deposits that you'll have to make. And so what I'd like for you to do, I'd like for you to think back and with maybe just one person in your life. It could be personal or professional. And tell me the deposit for that person that you did and maybe withdrawal, if you want to be honest, a withdrawal that happened. And so I'll give you an example. One of my coworkers is one of his top things, like on the elements of trust, is the consistency or the reliability. And so he's never late. He's always early. And to him, that's disrespectful. And unfortunately, that's one of the things that I struggle with. And so I know that when I'm late, which I have been before, that would be a withdrawal for him when he said, like, we're going to be here at this time. I'm running a little bit late. But for a deposit is that, working with him and, we co-facilitate and just coming up with ideas to continuously improve our presentations, things like that. He really appreciates that input. So Jake says getting married and then unmarried. I don't think I'm going to ask for further detail, but that's interesting. If you're still typing and maybe a little bit longer, that's fine. We're going to jump down. So just think about, just pick somebody recently, and whether work or at home, and tell me a deposit that you made for them or withdrawal that happened. People building it up building people up, is good. I like to recognize folks for what they may think are small achievements. Absolutely. Poor boss was being talked about and appeared more because he didn't interact with the rest of the team. They assumed he wasn't capable, suggested he have more conversation with the team, and they would see his ability as I did. Withdrawal. He always built me up and supports me regardless. Okay, mentoring belts and black belts is very rewarding to me. Ooh, Sarah, that's good. Highlighting someone's work anniversary at a meeting. I'm assuming you meant that was positive. And that deposits frank and direct communication daily about status on delicate project. Withdrawal, not telling me, and an executive had an issue with my approach to a volunteer role. Oh, dang, that's saying sorry. Strong communication. Sorry. Okay, so let's look. Ooh, deposit. Yes, Darlene. Now you're speaking my language, bringing me food. Absolutely. This is helping on a project where someone was overwhelmed and then withdrawal, being micromanaged. Sure, for sure. Okay, so we're going to circle back to the disc and again, how that relates to, my deposits and my withdrawals as we start to get to know our folks and see maybe where they land on here. And you can get it if you weren't here in the last session, you can see kind of where this would lie. On the outer edge, there's 8 priorities. And so the 3 top priorities were a full D, or something that's extreme in there. We challenge results in action. But in general, what they value is independence, decisiveness, directness, victory, and results. And so if you know this person is in that area somewhere, these are the things that you can do to do a deposit. Allow them to be independent, do what they want to do. When you're speaking with them, be direct. Don't beat around the bush. They don't need a ton of details. They just want to know what they need to know and then get those results. And on the flip side of that, what frustrates the D is oversensitivity, hesitation, filtering weakness. And so being careful not to avoid those, that would be a potential withdrawal for that person. The next one for the I values creativity, optimism, passion. And so if we can create an environment where they are able to have that enthusiasm, or you share in that enthusiasm with them, allow them to be in teams more often, that'll be a deposit. And then for a withdrawal, the frustrations, lots of rules, overcautious, over-analysis, somebody that is introverted or sensitive. And so again, when we're trying to relate to people, knowing how we are, if we are normally an introverted person, that's going to be a little bit more difficult to stretch to that. But we're able to, it's just going to take more energy. And so just in being intentional about, with this person, they want to talk for a little bit and I have to get out of my comfort zone and do that if that relationship is important and valuable to me, if I want to grow that relationship. So the S, the value for that is cooperation, humility, team focus as well. I think there will be some overlapping that you'll see similarities with each quadrant that touch each other. So the deposit would be, can we work together, being loyal, having that person's back and showing that to them. And again, the team focus. Frustration for them, aggressiveness, sudden change. So with this person, if we know something is coming up that's going to be a change, trying to give that advanced warning or at least a little bit of something, or maybe the information they need to make a decision. And you'll find too that the opposite quadrants are kind of the budding or the opposite ones. What the D values, like let's say the directness, could be a frustration for the S, because the S sometimes will see that directness as aggressiveness or pushiness, and it's a perception. And so again, if we're trying to work on a relationship with the person of the opposite that we are, we have to just put a lot more energy into that to do it. The C, they value on-time performance, completeness, dependability, accuracy. And so if I'm working with someone and I'm trying to make a withdrawal for them, I need to be really careful about looking back, paying closer attention to the details, making sure I turn my reports in on time, right? And they love reports. They love the details. So if I'm having a conversation with this person and I'm not used to giving the details or whatnot, try to stick with the facts, and they do appreciate more of those. Their frustrations, lateness, it's spotty research, exaggerated enthusiasm. So again, the C's are in direct conflict. And so I'm partially, and so for me, when I'm dealing with a C, I have to be careful about my exaggerated enthusiasm. I can have to tone it down a little bit. Let's see. Okay. So another element to look at with building relationships would be empathy. The definition of empathy would be the capacity to understand or feel what another person is experiencing from within their frame of reference. So, the capacity to place yourself in somebody else's position. So it's not that I have to feel what they feel or agree with the way that they feel, but just acknowledge and understand, okay, where they're coming from, how they may feel that way. And so practicing empathy, what can we do? With this video, this is from a movie called Inside Out. And it's a kid's movie, but if you haven't seen it, it's wonderful. It has a lot of great lessons, even for adults. This pink elephant, Riley, is this girl, and this is inside her brain. The girl on the left, Joy, is her emotion, her happy emotion. And in the middle is sadness. That's her sadness emotion. The elephant is her imaginary friend that she had when she was younger, and she's about to forget him. He's really upset. So we're notice how the two emotions to handle it and which one was better.
Rocket! Wait! We're still using that rocket. It still has to sand. Pose you to the flame. It's dark. It's fun. Riley, we're going to the moon. Riley can't be done with me.
Hey, it's gonna be okay. We can fix this. We just need to get back to headquarters. Which way to the train station?
I had a whole trip planned for us.
Hey, who's ticklish, huh? Here comes the tickle one.
I'm sorry they took your racket. They took something that you loved. It's gone. Forever.
Sadness. Don't make him feel worse.
Larry.
It's all I had left of Riley.
I bet you and Riley had great adventures.
They were wonderful. Once we flew back in time, we had breakfast twice that day.
It sounds amazing. I bet Riley liked it.
Who she did. We were best friends.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm okay now. Come on. The train station is this way.
So tell me, if you remember, what were some of the tactics that Joy, the first emotion, tried that didn't work? Diversion. Yeah, distraction. Kind of sweeping it under the rug. It's all right. We'll figure out the solution. Let's just go. Come on, we'll deal with it. Yeah, and the second one, how did sadness handle it? Listened and empathized. Allowing the person to feel, letting them to talk. Accepting and sharing emotions. Named the feeling. Absolutely. So what happens when we're dealing with heightened emotional situations or experiences is that there are certain things that we can do to help the situation, and obviously certain things to hurt it. I think commonly, especially in the workplace, we try to ignore the feeling part of it, but all humans have feelings, right? And so what can we do to be more effective with dealing with these heightened emotional situations? And so I say that we acknowledge, but not validate the feeling. So we may not agree with how the person is feeling. We may not understand it, and it really may be inappropriate, especially if it's in the workplace. But instead of ignoring it or doing nothing about it, or even on the flip side, like, hey, you shouldn't be like that, just acknowledge the feelings and saying it out loud, you're frustrated, you seem frustrated about this, and tag along with that fact of what's going on to make sure that you understand the situation correctly as well. So you feel frustrated or you feel sad because Riley, is forgetting about you and you had so much fun with her, you don't want to. Letting them know that you care is super important, that I'm sorry this is happening to you. It must be difficult. And is there anything that I can do, to support you in some sense? Showing the interest. So just allowing them to talk or asking them questions about it. And again, in the work setting, we do have to be careful, obviously, but if we can spend a little bit of time, like in the video, of doing a little bit of, I'm sorry this is going on, I'm sorry that you're feeling this way, I want to help you get out of this, as your leader, your support, whatever, what can I do to assist the situation so that we can return back to where we need to be? And then allowing them to be heard. So allowing ask the questions and then letting them talk for a little bit. If you run into a situation where, somebody's coming into you and you're not even aware of it and it's just right in your face and you don't have a lot of time, what do I do in that situation? Tell them, hey, this seems really important and I want to give you my full attention. And I've got I'm expecting a call here in 10 minutes, or I've got to get this email out by a certain time. Can we schedule for a time for you to come back for us to talk? And most of the time, people will respect, like, hey, they're wanting to give me their full attention, and I get, I interrupted them. Occasionally, it'll happen to where it's just extreme, and you've got to deal with it right then and put off whatever that you're doing. But in general, just taking in the fact that we all have feelings, and we all are expressing our feelings based off our reactions to whatever stimulus it may be, and moving forward. Okay, so going off of that, talking about the emotional parts, there is a video. Let me see what we're doing on time. Oh, we're doing good. Called The Elephant and the Rider. So when I'm trying to implement change in my facility, this is a tactic that we can do to help implement that change that will help relationships and not hinder them while implementing change.
Psychologists know that there are two systems in our brains, the rational system and the emotional system. Jonathan Haidt, who's a psychologist at NYU, came up with a great analogy for these two systems. He said, think of your brain as a human rider atop an elephant. That represents the rational system. That's the part of us that plans and problem solves. That might do some analyzing and decide, hey, I want to go that way. But it's the elephant, representing the emotional system, that provides the power for the journey. The rider can try to lead the elephant or drag the elephant, but if these two ever disagree, who would you bet on? The elephant has a 6-ton weight advantage, and it's exactly that power imbalance that makes adopting new behaviors very hard. If you want this duo to head a new direction, you also need to think about the path, which represents the external environment. This duo is more likely to complete a journey if you can shorten the distance and remove any obstacles in their way. So bottom line, if you want to lead change, you've got to do 3 things. Give direction to the riders, knowledge of how to get to the destination. You've got to motivate the elephant, which means tapping into emotion. And finally, you need to shape the path to allow for easy progress. That's how change happens.
It's with change, eventually we'll get there if we do it ineffectively, but man, there's a lot of struggle and it can go a lot better. So when it comes to looking at the two different sides, the person of ourselves too, and of other people and how it'll affect the relationship. Like I said, the elephant is the emotional. So that's the instinctive part that feels pain and pleasure. Our emotional side, that's the immediate gratification. I want it now. And it's the energy and the drive if it's something that they are passionate about, but that they're passionate about it. And so if we're trying to create change, what can I do to create at least the motivation or an environment of motivation for that person. You may not always get the passion out of them, but what can I do? And so, depending on whatever the change is, trying to let the person be included where possible, give them as much information as you can up front, asking them questions, getting their input so that they can feel part of the process instead of something that's shoved on them, and allowing them to make some decisions on a smaller level wherever possible. And how would you, what step would you take next, or which way would you go? How would you do this? Or can you help me? And sorry, Chalk says, what if the direction isn't clear? We need to get out of a crisis. And so I'm not fully understanding the question, but I'll try. You can let me know if it was close. So if you don't know exactly where you need to go, but there's a crisis happening, obviously you need to stop and handle that crisis. Now, sometimes we do need to just tell the person, this is what I need for you to do in that moment, but explain, hey, this is an emergency. We got to do this. We got to get out of it. But if the change is, you have more time to handle whatever the change is, then you can include that person. So I don't know if that is exactly what you're asking about. If you want to ask it a different way, I might be able to answer better. And so with the writer, that's the rational side. That's the concise or analytical, but sometimes the writer can spin their wheels because they're overthinking it. And they have the ability, though, to think long term and plan for the future. And like it said in the video as well, what gets in the way when those two conflict? The elephant, the emotional side, it can be overbearing. When it comes to rational and emotional, like the emotional side will win out almost every time. And so it's stronger if you get the passion behind it, but it's also lazy. It wants that immediate gratification. So let's say here, the writer in me, the rational in me or whatnot, I need to lose weight to be healthier and to do all these things or whatnot. But the half of it, the emotional side, right, is that, man, that candy bar tastes really good. And I want to eat that. That's the immediate gratification. So you have that struggle. And that's what a lot of people deal with. They see like, okay, I know this is better for me, but this makes me feel good, whatever that may be. Even, with dealing with extreme things like people that are addicted to drugs and things like that, that's a part of that. So how do we tap into their emotions? What are some ways that I can allow them to be more emotionally invested or provide a motivating environment? Ask for their opinion. What do they think, about this part or whatnot? Ask for their perspective. How do you see it from your side? Ask them to be a devil's advocate. Are there any potential problems that you see? Ask for ideas. Ask, what they would do or would have done in a situation. Again, if we can admit our mistakes, if we took a step and failed, say, hey, you know what, I did this. It probably wasn't the right step. I see that now. Do you want to help me, move forward? What would you have done? Would you have done anything differently? And then when it comes to behavior change, if you have an employee that you need to address something like tardiness or they're just someone with a standard not doing it correctly, allow them to be involved in that action plan of what they're going to do to correct whatever behavior it is. Because again, they have that more investment. If they're going to say, hey, this is what I think that I can do to correct this behavior, they're way more likely to be successful and consistent and sustainable with it than if I just tell them what they need to do. So I'm going to end with this. I love Big Bang Theory. This, again, is another one of my favorite videos. I guess all my videos are my favorite. And that's the exaggerated enthusiasm in me. This is just a precautionary that there are people out there that use emotional intelligence wrong, and it goes into the manipulation. And so be careful with that, seeing that you might be able to pick that in other people. And obviously for yourself, don't do that to other people, learning how they take in their emotions and giving them what they want to get what you want. That's not how emotional intelligence works. Obviously, it's a two-way, it's that building a relationship. And so we're going to see this in action. Let me see what Katie said. The challenge with asking opinions on a change, sometimes the plan cannot be changed based on team opinions. How to balance, because we don't want to ask for opinions that we can do nothing about this. Yeah, absolutely. So you do have to be careful, and these are all examples. So if there is areas of change that there really is no wiggle room for their opinion, you definitely don't ever want to involve that and then not be able to implement or anything like that. So try to find pieces of it, or for your area, like this is how the change is affecting our area. What can we do to create this a smoother process for that? But like you're saying, Katie, that's really great. Like, don't ever ask for input if you know that you're not going to be able to do anything with that input. Jay has a TRIZ teaches to ask who else solved this problem before. See if anybody out there has experience with it. Yvette says, how can this be turned into an opportunity to open communication? Absolutely. I think that is a valid point. But sometimes when change is being pushed down on us, even from above, some of it, is hard to control or have much wiggle room.
I have a question, actually.
Okay.
So if we good with audience questions for the moment. You had mentioned earlier about language to acknowledge feelings. Now, I will admit that this is a part of the entire topic I might struggle with. So what suggestions do you have for acknowledging feelings in a way that's not condescending?
So going back to it seems like you feel frustrated. And so you're just making sure that you understand where they're coming from, and then taking one step further and saying, because of this. And so you're acknowledging their feeling, but also making sure that you're understanding what they're even upset about, or whatever the emotion is. And so, like, you're frustrated, angry, to me, that's acknowledging the feeling. Does that make sense?
So are you talking about acknowledging what you see and then perhaps you the reason for it? Like you're unhappy because you didn't get invited to the party. Is that correct?
Right.
So it's sort of like a problem statement almost,
Yes.
or a summary of the situation. Okay. Yeah. See, now I can handle that.
And sometimes you may be wrong, because with emotions, they're all over the place sometimes, and so that people are like, you see one thing, especially for other folks that aren't as emotional, right? I don't like saying that, but you know what I mean? They don't outwardly express their emotions. And so it's hard to determine, like, okay, what's going on? Like in this video that we're about to see with the Big Bang Theory. And so just bring it out there, say like, okay, I see that there's an emotion going on. And I'm thinking, like, it seems like you're feeling frustrated at XYZ, and put that factual back in. And so it's twofold, with acknowledging their feelings, making them feel like, okay, they're actually paying attention and whatnot. But then also making sure that I have a clear picture of what's going on. Oh, thank you, Harry. So I'm going to play this video and then listen to it.
With our friends moving forward in their relationships, I've decided that we should make progress in ours as
Oops. Dear Lord, yes. 2 years ago, we didn't even know each other. And now I'm in your apartment after dark. How much faster can this thing go?
I had a feeling you'd be reluctant, which is why I'm going to dip into my neurobiological bag of tricks.
Oh, you brain monkeys kill me. Dip away.
I've devised an experiment that I believe will increase your feelings for me in an accelerated time frame.
And how do you propose to do that? I hope you're not thinking about some sort of LSD thought control. Because there's only one mind-expanding drug that this man enjoys, and that's called school.
Human beings form emotional attachments as they grow up. In your case, to your mother, superheroes, etc. I'm going to attempt an experiment that will get you to transfer those feelings to me.
Well, seems what's on the menu tonight is malarkey with a big side of poppycock.
We'll see. Let's start with a little romantic dinner music, shall we?
Super loyal, buddy, Steen.
Yes.
I see what you're doing. You're attempting to build on the work of Ebbinghaus by triggering an involuntary memory of me playing that game. Admittedly, the happiest 600 hours of my childhood. But it won't work.
Fine. There's no reason we still can't have a lovely dinner. Why don't you have a seat? May I offer you something to drink?
You know I don't drink.
Not even strawberry quick?
I love strawberry quick. It's my favorite pink fluid. Narrowly beating out Pepto-Bismol.
I think it will go nicely with what I have prepared for dinner.
And spaghetti with little pieces of hot dog cut up in it.
Just like your mommy used to make.
Yummy, yummy. We should do this more often. Do you think?
So obviously that video wasn't really teaching us anything, but it's really a funny way to end it. That's, that kind of goes into she's feeling what he tried to do. But sometimes you have to be careful with that to use those things that getting those emotional triggers from others for advantage.
So, folks, you could have spent your time this last hour a lot of ways. We appreciate you spending it with us. So, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're calling from. And thanks for spending this time with Amanda and me talking about emotional intelligence. Have a good day.